Oh, son, what's good, my boy? What makes this device so addictive? It's a question that I've been pondering for weeks. It's been so long since I've played fucking video games, drank alcohol, smoked weed, beat my meat, and those are the four vices that I've always told myself I want to quit. And some of them are harder than others, but eventually it came to a time where I've been able to quit them now. Most of these things I've quit for over a year, and the alcohol and the porn I've quit for over 3 months. And yeah, I get horny. Yeah, I'd like to drink. I'm constantly around alcohol and shit. I still go to bars. But I just choose to stay disciplined. There's one thing that always gets through the walls of my discipline, and that's this fucking phone. Why is this shit so addictive? And I was going to make this video by going over, 100 years ago they did this. 50 years ago our parents did this. They didn't have this problem. But that's not true. Of course there are some old people that don't even know how to use a phone, or they just don't give a fuck about it. They just don't care about learning about it. But the older people who have learned about it, I see them scrolling just as much. It's not like it's only 20-year-olds that are out here making YouTube channels and making millions of dollars off the internet. A lot of them are older people, 40, 50-year-old people. Shit, even my job, I work as a general contractor. I see some motherfuckers get on the TikTok and they'll just start scrolling for hours. And I could say all these different things and people are going to be like, you're virtue signaling, but I don't really give a fuck. At the end of the day, I really want to get to the bottom of this. Now, I've managed to do one single thing regarding this topic, which is monitor what content I watch. For the most part, my whole young life, and up until a couple months ago, I would just mindlessly consume content. There would be no conscious effort in what I digested. I didn't use it as education. I just used it as entertainment. Now, what some people would judge on the scale of entertainment and education is different. Some things swing more this way, some things swing more the other way. And honestly, I've coped for a while by saying, oh no, I'm just watching this 4-hour podcast because I'm getting so much education, but it's just very stimulating to my brain, and I feel like that's why I do it. It's definitely something to do with all the dopamine and all the scientific terms, Andrew Huberman type shit, but I'm just not that well versed and educated in all the specifics of neurology, and I can't really go over them. But what I can tell you, what I can attest to is my own personal experience. See, back in 2020, this whole era of this online self-improvement space blew up. You saw so many creators and just take off, and a lot of them took off due to one similar topic: dopamine detox. It was like the ultimate negative to the positive at that time. The positive that everybody embraced at that time was staying in their homes and just living completely plugged into all the technology. I'm talking about binging Netflix TV shows, playing games. Oh, dude, I'm getting platinum on fucking League of Legends or Valorant, whatever the fuck. Oh, I'm doing real good. I'm global elite in CSGO. And they indulged completely in these desires because they were enabled by the fucking government, by the United States government, and most governments around the world who blocked their towns and their cities inside. Now, I'd like to say that it's all because of that and have one big boogeyman to blame, that we've been conditioned through that 2-year period to really indulge into our technology and all that shit, and it's not true. I remember fucking 4 years before the pandemic, when I was in like 8th grade, I would just play video games 14 hours a day. I would never unplug. There was a time period when I was a kid where I loved fishing. I loved going out in the woods. I loved going hunting. These little adventures in real life that you would go on were so entertaining. But slowly but surely, I was sucked into the other 50%, as I'd like to call it. The 50% that's been doctored and man-made over the last 50 or 60 years to completely envelop us. The older generations, they had things like television and their Game Boys and their consoles. Then the 2000s, you had the complete takeover of consoles and Call of Duty and all that shit, but there was still some sorts of real world elements to it. I remember an uncle of mine that's a Navy SEAL, he would play fucking Call of Duty and shit on an Xbox when he was in Iraq, but the motherfucker was a Navy SEAL, one of the biggest real world things you can do. And so forth. Kids would go outside and fucking play for 4 hours, then come in some days when it rains or whatnot to go out and skateboard, but then they'd come in and play video games. There was kind of a balance. And of course there were the neckbeards in the 2000s, the people that played World of Warcraft for 14 hours, all that shit, people that played those other games. I'm not trying to say that there's some big great divide that happened, but there certainly is some sort of influence in our culture that has completely shifted the way we view being consumed by these devices. The rise of the LED lights around the room, the purple LED lights and the fucking liquid-cooled PCs and the big Razer gaming headsets and all these sponsored events, sometime became mainstream. I remember young, 8th grade, which was a big turning point in my life where I ruined relationships because I was so addicted to the video game. Oh, Grandpa's coming to town. Fuck Grandpa, I'm trying to pull an all-nighter. I got a gallon of Arizona iced tea, a bottle to piss in, and fucking and a gallon box of goldfish. I'm going for this shit. I'm gonna get that mount that I really want in World of Warcraft. Other games, I don't really have the analogies because World of Warcraft was my game. But, it's like, I remember I ruined relationships for that back then, right? And then, when the school year came around, because I was in the summer, I was so embarrassed. I remember sitting in Spanish class with one of my best friends. I don't really talk to him as much anymore because our views kind of are different about the world. And I don't live by them. But we were sitting in class. I was fat, real self-conscious back then. And he was sitting right here and there was 2 girls sitting in front of us. They were real pretty, popular, that type of shit. And we were all talking about what we did over the summer. What'd you do, dog? What'd you do? Everyone's talking it up. And my friend made a comment to make them laugh at my own expense that really just took me out of the moment, where I was just like immediately in my head and I was just like, bruh, like that type of shit. It was like, oh, Cameron spent all summer playing World of Warcraft. And there was a cultural knowledge of like, damn dog, that's some loser shit. Back then. And that was 8th grade for me. And that had to have been like, let me think. Around 2015, 2016, the whole Trump presidential thing. I think it was like 2015, I think it was 2016. And I was just like, damn, bruh, they really said that. And it was like, but then there was a shift to where everybody is on this shit. The e-girls, the fucking everybody. No longer is it just like this like little hobby that like boys and like, of course there were probably some girls that did it, but there was obviously a difference in like things that people generally saw as cool. Whenever you look back at media from like the 2000s and shit like that, the little flip phones and shit, the girls are still out going and doing real life shit, the guys are still doing real life shit. The majority. I'm not talking about the cave dwellers or the little fucking, oh, there's different people. I hate people that talk about fucking outliers so much. There's like an outlier fucking spokesperson, and anytime you make a statement about society, some guy's like, oh, but there's an outlier. Yeah, there's fucking people with no arms and legs, and obviously my fucking gym advice wouldn't work out for them in telling them to squat and fucking deadlift and bench press. Now would it? There's outliers. Little ramble, I have ADHD, a little autism, a little retardation. Gonna get through that. But you look back at the 2000s, all the movies, and you see like the flip phones, but there's still like this predominant party culture, like, but there's this dominant party culture. And whenever I was in high school, that's when I feel like this paradigm shift started to happen. Early in high school, I would be around some of the jocks and shit, and I was like real heavy into like drugs and all that shit early on, so that was like my end. I was a fat like loser that I didn't have much confidence, but I could talk to a lot of the cooler like popular kids because I was into drugs and like Reddit. I'd go on Reddit and read all these drug forums and shit, so I had all this knowledge. I felt like a fucking scientist. I had a couple friends that were like even more advanced than me, but I felt like cool because of that. And I'd pick up on all this culture and like real life party and shit like that, where they'd smoke weed with a bunch of people and have fun, and I'd want to do that so bad. I didn't have the confidence to ask them to hang out, but they would smoke weed together. But me and like my little group of friends, we'd all smoke weed together or in our own rooms and play our games and shit like that. And there was an obvious shift. Now, of course, there were outliers and there was different things. Sometimes I would go places and shit like that. But I remember right as I got out of high school, and even the year following getting out of high school, when I fell into this self-improvement space, it really seemed like there was a shift in just, it could be from me being plugged in a lot at that time and not really being in the real world as much as I am now. But there was an obvious shift in like streamers and all these parasocial relationships, and all this shit started taking over, where it was almost like, you don't need the real world anymore. You don't need it. That's what it kind of seemed like. Like there was like this narrative being pushed by whoever. We're going to talk about JQ or whatever. But there was like this obvious pushing of just weird shit. And honestly, now that I think about it, I said in the beginning of the video that I don't think it's because of the pandemic, when realistically, now that I think about it, it could be. It could have been because of the pandemic, because that was whenever everybody was almost encouraged. So really, maybe them JQs were the reason. Maybe it was the JQs ruling over the world that made us all go in our houses. Well, we can't get that live. We can't get that deep on YouTube now, can we? But let's get back to the meat and potatoes and the important bits. I've done enough rambling and philosophy and just like my own ideologies on this shit. So let's go over some real tips to start doing this. Now, I'm not completely controlled by this. Every once in a while, I'll get sucked in. But for the most part, I practice one of the main things and one of the main mind-changing points of thought that have changed the way I act with this and the way I use this. And that is the statement, produce more than you consume. Now, this was a statement that I had heard back in 2020 through all the dopamine detox people. This is how you get rich. You got to be a producer. And I've really tied it together with religion. I found God in the Bible and things like I found God in the Bible, and I've really been taking my religion more seriously. But there's a sentiment from the Bible that says you reap what you sow. And whenever I think about that, it makes sense. It ties perfectly together with produce more than you consume. Now, the produce more than you consume applies greatly to me because I make these videos and content. I produce structures in the real world with building materials for people in their homes and stuff like that. But whenever you truly take it down to the core of it, a lot of people are consumers. They mindlessly consume, mindlessly scroll, mindlessly watch these types of videos like I'm sending you. And I can't lie, I do this shit too. But I have a little bit of a leg up because I can snap myself out of it really easily to the point where I am conscious whenever I make the effort to consume. See, I like watching podcasts. I don't really watch a bunch of like short form clips. I find myself, one of the habits that I have with consuming too much is, say I'm going to buy a product. Like I just bought a MacBook. I'll get on a binge of watching like reviews and like how to use it and all this shit. And it's really just like me. It's like my brain's way of coping and making rationalizations to keep getting dopamine, because I'm super excited to get this thing I spent $2,500 on. So my brain's just giving me all these rationalizations to get dopamine from that situation. And same for the self-improvement. Whenever I first began, I watched thousands of self-improvement videos without actually doing some good shit. I went to the gym and stuff like that. But implementing it into making these videos and actually producing more than I consumed took me almost 2 years to finally say fuck it and do it. And now I've been doing it consistently for like 4 or 5 months. And then I've been doing it in total for 10 months. It took me an additional 5 months after my first video to get consistency and all those skills and all that shit. But that's a story for a different day. Today we're talking about the producing more than you consume. And you really can take this into more than just this aspect of videos, content creation, and things. You can just take it in. Alright, dog, reap what you sow. You want to fucking sit there and binge a bunch of videos for like 8 hours and get nothing done, or you want to watch them porn for like 2 hours or whatever, or something. you need to really think about it and get the practice down of thinking before you act with it, because it is very easy to be sucked in, especially if you are a young person. We have been conditioned like this. I don't like to harp on it because of course there was like TV back in the 50s that people could just watch all day, but we were the generation given the iPads to stop crying. Instead of let's go play baseball and football, we were given the iPads. My little brother was like 3 years old. I remember going to the mall and they gave that motherfucker an iPad and he would stop crying and he'd just be glued to it. That's just how the world is nowadays, dog. So if you really want to get ahead of a lot of people, or you really want to go after your goals and stop being so distracted, you need to practice the sentiment of produce more than you consume. Think of it more as like more positive. You got to think of it as like a positive and a negative if you're not going to be making videos like this. Think of like consuming too much mindlessly in zombie mode is a negative. So what would be the positive to that? The opposite of the negative. The opposite of it would be to do something productive. Create a schedule that would limit as much as you do. Like it's super hot out right now. It's like 105, and whenever I'm up on roofs or like building or like putting finish work in on my outdoor living room I'm building, it gets super hot. So instead of working till 4 o'clock, I've been leaving at about 2:30 and just working earlier. And I have more free time in the evenings to work on shit like this. But then sometimes I'll find myself procrastinating, or I'll find myself stuck in a loop and I'll pull it out. Like lately there's been this guy named John Zerka that I've been really into watching. He's real out there. His fucking personality is just like in your fucking face, and I find it really entertaining. But it'll be in long form, and I'll get some general bits and things to help me build my faith through the videos. So my brain, again, just like everybody else's brain, rationalizes why you can keep watching it, why you could keep watching. You can take a break, dog. And the best way for me that I found to combat that is treat it like a break. Work until, but not like a break on going on, not a break on feelings, not a break on, I feel like I've been doing enough. Set parameters, set a schedule of like, all right, from this time to this time, I'm going to be doing all these habits. Going to be journaling, meditating, all this blah, 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 all this shit that you want to set up for yourself to do. And then at the end of it, consciously consume. For me, a conscious consumption would be me and my grandpa. I live with my grandpa. He's 75. I'm 20. I help take care of this place, and I also work my job and help pay a lot of the bills around here. Now, he's on a fixed income and shit like that, so I chose to move over here and help him out. But it's hard for me to keep our relationship up with each other and keep our same rapport whenever I'm working 8 hours in the day, then coming home doing all these videos and spending a while editing and coming up with ideas, and then also reading and editing all these videos into clips, and then learn. It's just a cycle. So every once in a while, a conscious consumption, I will take a break and I'll just say, all right, I need to hang out with him. So I'm going to go down there, sit. I won't get anything productive done, but I also will not bring my phone so that I can distract myself. And I'll just sit there and talk to him and smoke a cigar. Or another one is I'll take an hour and 30 minutes, like I'll take 2 hours before I go to bed and go watch an hour and 30-minute movie with him. And we'll just sit around, talk, and just shoot the shit. And that's a conscious consumption. But me wanting to do something like, oh, I gotta work out or I gotta make these videos, and then just sitting there on my phone scrolling on Twitter or watching a YouTube video whenever I could just get this shit done sooner, that is a mindless consumption. Now, you've learned about all this. I want to give you one last little golden tidbit of value in this video, and that is grounding yourself. During this journey, I'm gonna make a full-form video about this probably tomorrow, but we have all these thoughts coming in our head. We get overwhelmed. You drink too much coffee and it's like all these realizations hitting you at once of what you need to do. You can't write it down fast enough. You can't decide if you want to pursue this venture or this venture. You're so multifaceted with all of them that you can't pick one to just follow through. You need to practice staying grounded. Not on no hippy-dippy faggot shit. Not on no hunky-dory shit. Not on like, You need to practice grounding yourself. And the two best ways I've found to ground myself is through meditation and walking. Now, walking, I hike because we got 50 acres of woods here. And I walk through the trails and shit. Leave the phone at home. Leave every single thing at home and just go on a walk and talk to yourself. Speak your realizations and that come to you out. Like for me, I got a notebook where I note down things all the time that I learn. And for me, I was walking and I made a realization of, once I get my laptop, a really good format of cinematography and art, as well as information that I can make into a video through here and create a formula on it and do it consistently every day like Casey Neistat did. I came to that realization while walking through and coming all these things. The idea for this video, yesterday I was walking through the woods, no phone, no nothing, and I was just thinking to myself, and I started speaking out loud. I started speaking out loud solutions to my problem, which is consumption and dopamine, detox, that type of shit. I don't like using that faggy buzzword. But I'm speaking out and I'm like, well, this is why you keep doing it and this, and it's all these different things. And I was speaking out loud, making the realization. I come back from my walk and I write it down and I'm clear-headed. I got all the knowledge out. And the walk, I don't know what it is. I'm not a scientist, but the walk just seems to really bring you at peace. And the second one is meditation. Now, there's two ways that I meditate. I meditate either through prayer or I do conscious breathing, which the easiest way to meditate is, now meditation, before I get into prayer, meditation is the best way to get all those thoughts that are cluttering your brain and you just like feel like you can't even stop. You got to sit down, close your eyes. It doesn't matter if you're laying down, sitting down, or whatever, or in a car moving. Just sit down, close your eyes. Now, I want you to try to make yourself kind of cross-eyed. Just like kind of look at your nose with your eyes closed, if that makes sense. Try to do that. And it'll feel kind of weird, like right in here. And don't do it super hard, but just kind of do it subconsciously. Then, the breathing. I want you to breathe in all the way through your nose, as deep as you possibly can. So, till you feel a pinch in your chest or you feel it in your stomach. And while you do that, I want you to push your stomach out. So like, let your stomach, almost like you're flexing your abs, but don't flex. But just like to where all the air gets into you. And then breathe it out all the way. Till you feel zero air able to escape from your body. And I want you to repeat that. See, I even got a little meditative just doing it one time. And repeat that over and over. And think just about that. Think just about the in and then the out. And all these thoughts will pop in your mind while you're doing it. And you're building reps. What you're doing is you're getting reps in of not thinking about those external thoughts. Just the breathing. Anytime a thought comes in your mind, forget about it and just go straight to the breathing. Just say in and out in your head. Just in and out in your head. Think it over and over and over. And that's the best way to meditate. And you will honestly come into like a state. Now, the time period you do it, it doesn't really matter. For me, I've kind of found like I just do it whenever I start feeling anxious or I feel like an absurd amount of thoughts where I can't think straight. I'll do it and it'll ground me. Or you can do the whole 10-minute thing, but I feel like meditation is best used as a tool when you need it, besides like some daily practice that you just shove in at the end of the day. I mean, it will still benefit you greatly, but if you can also combine using it as a tool. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. Chase paper and enjoy nature, old son, and don't let your fucking device control you. Have a great day.